All right, so now that we have all of these drawn, I'm not going to worry about these other sheets right now. I can work on those while this sheet is getting cut out. I'm going to hit close on this window that's open. And up here on this little blue arrowed menu, if I click that, it's going to move me over to the toolpath menu. And so this is where I set up my toolpaths to do different procedures. So if I zoom in here, the first thing I want to do is I want to cut all of these pieces as rabbits and dados. And I can select the whole sheet at once, or I can just do each piece. It doesn't matter. I'm going to zoom in and do everything in this window. So I'm going to hold shift. And while I'm holding shift, I'm going to click on this dado, this dado, this dado, and this dado. Now I could do this dado as well, this one here and this, but where they intersect is going to be a problem when there's two dados that overlap each other and they intersect. It gets confused to what to do. So I'm just going to do those four for now. I could even do these ones right here, hold shift and do these in the one set of toolpath. So I have a profile toolpath, and that's going to be for cutting out the outside edges. That's going all the way through. A pocket is going to remove the material, everything in the center of the lines we've drawn. The profile is not going to remove the center, but it's going to literally cut around the outside edge. So we want to be using pocket today. And we're going to make our pockets typically half the thickness of the wood. So we're going to be going down 3/8, which is 0.375. And we're going to be using whatever end mill you're using. We're going to stick with this 1/4 inch end mill, and it's going to do one pass to remove 3/8 deep. And we don't want to worry about that one. Offset, we're not worried about that. You can leave that. Ramp moves, we can leave that. And maybe we want to label this so I know what size bit it is when it's running. I could put this as, 0.25 bit, and it's making dados, just so I'm aware of what it does. And now when I hit calculate, it's going to put that in a list down here. And it brings me to this odd looking sheet. And if I hit preview, all toolpaths or visible toolpaths, if it's checked, it's visible. If I hit preview, it's going to show me in this cut piece of wood what it's doing. So I must have had one selected over here because it's also highlighting this 1/4 inch groove. So if I back up over here and zoom out, you can see that it is pink over here. And so I'm getting that double, those are both getting cut. And that's fine, not a big deal. I can leave that and then come on to my next one. That one, it didn't have a problem with where they overlapped. So that's okay. We'll leave that. Now what we're going to do is come in here and select our other ones. They're going to be the exact same. So we're going to hold shift, and I'm going to select everything else that was not selected. And I can even zoom out and come up here and select some of these other ones. Oh, I got too much selected here. So I want to make, so now that that one's done, I'm going to select my next pieces, 1/4 inch groove, 1/4 inch groove, 1/4 inch groove. We already did this 1/4 inch groove. I'm not going to grab that, but I'm going to grab this shelf, this shelf, this shelf, this one, and this one, and this one needs to get done too. So I'm going to click on it. And then we're going to close this menu here. And then we're going to click pocket toolpath again. Remember, profile cuts the outside, pocket removes the inside. And we're going to set the depth again to 3/8. It remembered how deep our last one was. Again, we're going to keep with the 1/4 inch end mill, but if you need to change that, you could put a 1/2 inch end mill, 3/8 end mill, whatever you have available to you. The bigger the bit, the faster it's going to remove the material. But we couldn't use a 3/8 end mill in this 1/4 inch groove. So in order to not change the bit as much, if we just leave that at a 1/4 inch, it can cut all of our stuff for us. So again, I got that set. None of this other stuff needs to be checked or messed with. And maybe I'll rename this again, 0.25, and this is more dados. And calculate. So now if I hit preview all toolpaths, it should show me everything. Now, if I look in, you'll notice I'm not seeing that one that's off to the side here. And the reason for that is it's off of this board. So in order for me to see this in my drawing, I would need to move this one a little bit closer to the other one. And then I'm going to take this one here and move this over. And now if I hit if I go back to my view and I move some stuff, so I'm going to hit reset preview and preview all toolpaths. You can still see it's not showing me. And the reason for that is because when I was over here, I moved it and it doesn't know that I moved it. So I have to come up here to toolpath and recalculate all toolpaths, and it will tell me it was done successfully or not. And it says, okay, so now those toolpaths are showing up. So if I come back here to preview toolpaths and then click on here, I'm going to reset that. And then if I hit preview all toolpaths, now it's going to show me all of the pieces because I now have them moved on that sheet, and I recalculated the toolpath. So anytime you move something after you set the toolpath, and then anytime you move something afterwards, you have to recalculate your toolpath. All right, so let's look at doing the outside layers. Now I did all my dados, so all those are going to get cut. And now we're going to come in here and do the outside edges. So I can do multiples at a time again. I just want to make sure I have the right thing. So if I click on this, you can see the purples all the way around, and I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to select this one. I'm not going to grab over here where there's all these lines because I might grab the wrong thing. So I want to come over here where there's less chance of me grabbing the wrong thing. And I'm holding shift and I'm going to click this line. And you can see it selected that whole box. That looks good. And if I come into here, now I could try to, again, click down here over here, but there's a lot more lines. So if I come over here in the middle and I hold shift, where there's a one single line, I'm going to click that one. And it looks like that one's going all the way around. And I'm going to click shift and click that one. That one looks like it's going all the way around, and still have shift and I'm clicking that one. So if I zoom out and look in, that purple is going all the way around. I'm going to continue to hold shift and select these two as well. Now this one's going to be a little different. So I'm going to close this preview menu and I'm going to go to profile this time. So we did pocket last time. We're doing profile this time. We want to cut these out. This time we're going to set how far deep we want. And there's a couple ways to do this. The way I find that works best is if we don't cut all the way through our first time, we're going to cut 0.7 inches deep. That leaves us 0.05 material left over that we're going to come cut later. And that way the vacuum system can hold it down and not lose suction as it's cutting through. And so I'm going to leave that at 0.7, and I'm going to select my toolpath. Right now it's on a V bit. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to do that 1/4 inch end mill again. And I'm going to hit OK. And it tells me it's going to take 2 passes to get this deep. That's fine. I could edit it. I could tell it I want to do it in 5 passes. I wouldn't want to go less than 2. If I did 1 pass, it might be too much for the bit to take off. Now I have to pay attention to the machine vectors here. I want to go outside. Right now it's on the line. So the bit is going to be on the line. And so it would cut my pieces 3/8 of an inch smaller. So if the bit is right on the line, it's a 1/4 inch. So it's going to be 1/8 on one side, 1/8 on the other. We don't want that. If I click inside, that means the bit is going to be totally inside and the outside edge is going to be right on the inside of the line. I don't want that one either. I want that outside shape. And the outside shape is going to allow me to cut this and have this piece, which we've drawn, to be the correct size. So outside is what we want. We can add tabs. Now, with this process I'm showing you of cutting 0.7, we don't necessarily have to do the tabs, but you could add tabs. What tabs are going to do is keep the pieces in place as you router them. So right now I have them set at a 1/2 inch long, 1/8 inch thick, and 3D. So that means they're going to be, as the machine is going, it's just going to go raise up and lower, and it's going to be a 3-dimensional shape rather than stop, go up, go down, and back over. So 3D, it doesn't really matter about the 3D, but if you have it checked, it just makes the machine process a little faster. If I hit edit tabs, now I can put in some different numbers, things like that. And I could say I want constant, each piece to have 4 numbers or 5 tabs. And then I can add tabs and it will automatically put them in. Now, one thing I have come to liking here is I'm going to change this back to 0 and add tabs. And it looks like it's going to give me 1. One thing I have come to like on this is when I edit my tabs, I can leave this menu alone and I could come over here and I could say, okay, I want a tab here. I just click and you can see the T, it adds a tab. Now I find it best if we add tabs right across from each other. That way when the bit comes in here and removes all this material, my strength is still attached here. If I offset them, then there's going to be a little bit of material here. And then as the bit comes along, there's going to be a little bit of material here, and they're not going to be touching each other if they're adjacent like that. We want it to be right across from each other. And so I would, on this big piece, I would come in and maybe put 3 tabs along a side right across from each other. I would avoid corners or where there's any dados or rabbits. So I wouldn't put one right here on the ends. I wouldn't put one right here where the rabbit is, because a lot of times when we remove these tabs, we would use a router table and a flush trim router bit, and the flush trim router bit bearing would ride on that rabbit. So that's why I avoid that. And again, I'm going to come over here and click tab there, and tab there. And there again, I'm avoiding my joints. And a tab there, and a tab there. Now, if there's something below this, I'm going to get rid of that corner one. For example, these two are touching each other. I'm going to put a tab on the end here and where that one is. And I want to be a little bit closer to centered there. Now, I might put one here and here, but again, I really don't like to put them on these joints. So we have a rabbit and a dado on the top here. So I'm really going to avoid putting them on the ends like that of this piece. I could still put them on the ends of that piece because there's no dado. Again, if I zoom in, I'm going to put some tabs here. There's no dado on this one because the rabbit's on the back end. The dado is in here in the middle. So I'm okay to put tabs on the edges of these. I'm going to move it from the corner. And to get rid of one, if you put it somewhere you don't like, just click on it again and it should go away. I'm going to move that one, put that there. Okay. And even on some of these small ones, like we have a little bit of material around the outside, you could just put a tab on there. That way it doesn't break loose and start vibrating around as we're cutting through. That's up to you if you want to leave those tabs on the edge pieces or not. So we're back up here to our end pieces, or our 2 shelves. And so I'll probably put 2 tabs on each of those. I'm going to put tabs here, but none on this piece because there's a rabbit there. I'm going to put a tab here and here and here. And then in the middle where these 2 are close to each other, if I were to leave these in this position, I would line these up. And you can see when I click on one and come over here and click it, it deletes that. So I just got to zoom in a little bit closer, and then I can put the other one across from it. So there and there. Now, if you want to make this so that you have the least amount of waste when you're done, we really, we could maybe get an extra shelf out of here, or maybe a drawer piece down here. But really, we could move some of these gaps closer together that we see in here. So I'm going to hit close now. And now that my tabs are added, and I'm going to keep scrolling down to the bottom and add ramps. A ramp means that the bit doesn't go straight into the wood. So without a ramp, the bit goes straight in and starts cutting. With a ramp, the bit is going to lower and move at the same time, so it doesn't bog down the machine as much. So a ramp's not a bad thing to have on there. You don't have to change any of it. Just go ahead and just click ramp, and it's going to go in as much as it can. So I'm going to change this to 0.25, and I'm going to leave this as outline or outline cuts, and calculate. So now that I've got all my pieces set, it's calculated the outside lines. If I just reset preview and preview all toolpaths, it's going to show me all the cuts, and that you can see they're not made all the way through yet, right? If I flip this around, they're not coming through. And the reason for that is we only made this one go 0.7 inches deep. So if I click over here, and I'm going to just click on this toolpath, and it's going to make everything highlighted again. I'm just going to hit calculate at the bottom. And when I come back, all of that stuff is still highlighted because that's the things that did last. So what I'm going to do now that they're all still highlighted because I double clicked on there, I'm going to close my preview menu, and I'm going to hit pocket again, or profile again. And this time I'm going to cut 0.75 inches deep. And this time it's going to cut all the way through. Now it should remember the last setting I chose outside and my 0.25 bit. Now, because it's already cut most of the way through, what I like to do is change this to one path. Now, it's because most of the material is cut and it's starting and it's going to cut all the way through. So I didn't put that at 1 the first time because that'd be too much for the machine to take off. Now, really, we're only taking off 0.05 inches. And so that's plenty for one pass, but it still thinks that it's going to make it cut through 3/4 material. So that's why I changed it to 1, because it doesn't know the difference. And we're going to do outside. This time I'm not going to add any tabs. And that way, when it cuts it out, the tabs are going to keep everything in place, but now it's only cutting 0.05. That's less than a 1/16 of an inch. And so it's going to just do that last pass. It's not going to have a lot of pressure on anything. So as it's cutting, it should hold everything in place still. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and come down to the bottom, and I'm going to click on calculate. You can change the name again if you want, 0.25 final outline, or whatever you want to call it, and calculate. Okay, so now if I hit preview all toolpaths, as I rotate this around, we should actually see the light through there now. We've actually cut all the way through. So that's what we want to see, is that cut all the way through. That looks good. All right, so there is one sheet set up and ready to cut. Now, because of all of these bits are the same thickness or the same diameter, if I want to save these, because now I got to get them to the router. This is just a CAD CAM program that allows me to set up and tell what I want the bit to do. Now we need to get this information to the actual machine. So I'm going to check these now, that because all of them are the same, I'm going to check all of them, and it's going to do one. It's going to cut all of these at one time. If I want to do just the dados, I could have just the dados selected, and that's going to be one file. And then if I have the other two selected, that would be another file. But just for the convenience of time, as we're running this, I'm going to select all of them that are the same diameter. Now, if you want to cut, if you added some dados in here and the dados were down here at the bottom, you can drag these to a different order. So maybe you set up more dados, you did your outlines, and you realized you forgot some dados. Well, we wouldn't want to cut the dados afterwards because it's not going all the way through, and we want the vacuum to have the most pressure. So you can just drag these, and it's going to actually cut them in order that you're doing them. So these ones are going to go first, then this line, and this line. So maybe you want more dados to go first for some reason. Then you can just switch those orientations, and it would do those first. And the order that it sees here is what it's going to do. So then I'm going to hit save, and it tells me all visible toolpaths into one file. I can check that or just leave it. It's going to do that anyways, because they're all the same. If I come down here to post processor, we shouldn't need to mess with that. Post processor should be this Shop Saber 5M speed arcs in inches. And then we're going to save the toolpath. Now it's going to ask me to save it, and I would put it somewhere you can find it. Maybe the desktop. In desktop, there might be a folder called students projects or whatever. Now, I wouldn't just label this 0.25 dados, but I would maybe label this Mr. Mills's example, gun cabinet, sheet 1, and 0.25 bit. The more information we have, we can make sure we get the right bit, the right piece. Sheet 1 just assures that this is sheet 1 of the 3 that we needed to cut. And then I'm going to hit save. And we want it in the desktop somewhere we can find it easy. All right. So that is one sheet. If we look here at this sheet and we want to see what we're doing, you can see it shows purple for each one of these. If I uncheck them, all that purple goes away. So if I want to see which one more dados is and I select on it, then I can see which way it's going. If I want to do final outline and I want to see and make sure, you can see here it's going outside of my original path. So that's good. That ensures that we're doing that the right way. It's going outside on each of those. It shows the direction that the bit is going to travel. So just a couple things you can do to make sure you've got it set up right is to look back here at the 2D view, because the 3D view is where you preview it. The 2D view is where you go back to do your other tool paths. And once we're here, if we check on the different bits, then we can verify all of our cuts that it's doing. Now you see all these on the rabbets, it's going to go back and forth, taking off little bits at a time. That's why there are so many arrows in different directions there, because it's going back and forth to remove all that.